Hello everyone, welcome to my channel and my presentation on my USMLE Step 1 preparation experience. Before we begin, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am an older IMG who took the Step 1 examination a little while ago and would like to share my experience with you all. I hope my experience can help with your exam preparation and medical career. All of the information in these slides is my own opinion and may not apply to everyone, but could provide some insights that may be useful to some of you. So, let's begin. I prepared for this exam for approximately 6 months. This included 4.5 months of preparation that involved watching videos, taking notes, regaining some of my foundational knowledge, and doing UL questions, and about 1.5 months of dedicated study where I reviewed incorrect answers, took mock tests, and honed weaker areas. However, this duration can be shorter to some depending on the strategies employed. There are several resources available, as you may already know, for Step 1. So let's move on so that I can show you which ones I used and how I used them. Boards and Beyond. I used Boards and Beyond as a comprehensive resource for about 1.5 months in my preparation. This subscription included a question bank. I made detailed notes on several concepts during this time. For someone who has been clinically active like me, this resource helped me revisit some of the basics of medicine, including microbiology, pathophysiology, basic pharmacology, and physiology of various subjects, which I don't usually see every day in the hospital. So if you're out of practice or have lost touch with some basics while still in practice, B&B could be an excellent resource to consider in your prep. If not, B&B could take up a lot of time, so decide if you need it based on your foundation. Someone who's just outside of medical school or in medical school, pretty much good in their deep concepts, probably does not need B&B. You could consider a smaller or a shorter resource like Pathoma, which is equally good but just not as comprehensive. I also annotated important topics in first aid to help understand better as I went through Boards and Beyond. I did not passively read and study FA. I only completed the relevant FA topics as I did Boards and Beyond. More importantly, I also created Anki flashcards as I went through B&B, but let's talk more about that later in the video. Sketchy. I believe that Sketchy has been a phenomenal tool in my study, especially in helping me retain the nitpicky microbiology details. I also found it useful for pharmacology, but not as much as for microbiology. I understand that Sketchy is not for everyone. Not a lot of people like to use it, but if you can incorporate it into your study, believe me, it will save you a lot of time in your prep. I used to watch a few videos every day and read the relevant information from FA before I slept. This incorporating Sketchy early on from Step 1 massively helped me for other steps as well. So remember, this could be advantageous for you if you can do Sketchy now. All you have to do is rewatch the same videos again and you can regain and retain information faster. UWorld. UWorld is a no-brainer for Step 1. Yes, this is the single most important tool. I would not recommend doing B&B during UWorld as it can deviate you from learning high-yield information for the exam. My strategy was to do all the questions on UWorld in a timed random mode to mimic exam conditions. Additionally, I created at least one Anki card per incorrect question, but sometimes up to 10 per question depending on the information I needed to remember. I also annotated FA as I went through UWorld as and when I needed it. It was during this time that I created strategies to answer questions as well. My first pass of UWorld was 62%, which was timed random in non-tutor mode. I started off by doing 1 block a day for about 2 weeks, after which I increased my pace to doing 2 blocks per day. This gradually increased to 3 blocks a day towards the end as I knew more information in the questions. As you read and understand why you go wrong and identify your knowledge gaps, I advise you to go back to first aid and Anki and keep doing them. Additionally, I urge you to consider your question solving strategy. I believe that most people can answer 100% of the questions with 80% of the information. Now, this doesn't happen for everyone because we tend to try to remember the information when we solve questions. I would approach this differently. Consider this for a moment. The question stem you're reading usually has all the information you need to pick the correct answer. So, to reach the correct answer, you may have to rule out other options, use a little bit of your knowledge, and make connections. The information you read on BNB, FA, and Anki is simply for you to make these connections. UWorld is the resource that helps you make the connections stronger and make them apparent to you. You don't need to know everything about every topic to reach the correct answer. So instead of wasting time trying to remember, solve the question in front of you like a math problem. If you have retained important information during your study, that information will automatically come to you. If not, go ahead and solve the question as a clinician would. Comment on the video if you want me to make a separate video on how to develop a strategy to solve USMLE style questions. Coming back to UWorld, I redid my incorrects. Contrary to common opinion, I did not remember most of the questions. I did them to ensure I had a handle on a few concepts, but it did not massively help me in regaining new information. I have to put that out there. Towards 60 to 70% of my UWorld completion, I began doing NBMEs to orient myself to the exam. Trust me, UWorld can be a rabbit hole where we can lose our aim. Doing self-assessments in between can bring you back to reality and make you realize that there's a lot of information, both inside and outside of UWorld, that not a single person can possibly remember. So the exam is testing your critical thinking. So you should be using the same skill of critical thinking to solve MCQs. Finally, let's come to Anki. I saved Anki for the final bit because Anki has been a formidable tool in my preparation. I believe rewatching and rereading are not useful strategies to retain information. In fact, you can go through the first few pages of first aid, which states exactly this. Passive learning like rewatching and rereading are not efficient, whereas spaced repetition offered by Anki and other flashcard tools can help you retain information faster, quicker, and for longer by helping you override the forgetting curve. I understand that some people do not study like this. Doing Anki and learning through it is an acquired skill. If you learn and acquire this skill, you will save tons of time from reading tens of pages and instead do 20 flashcards in that time to retain information. I made a little less than 5,000 flashcards for step 1, and I also did about 5,000 cards from pre-made decks like Anking. I have to stress that creating my own flashcards, even though took a little bit more time, helped hammer a few things into my brain. As I went on, I was able to review a block and create cards within an hour without ignoring any important information. Okay, let's move on to my dedicated period. I gave 9 mock tests from UWorld self-assessments, NBMAs to the free 120. I'm going to show you the scores I got for all of them. Meanwhile, during this period, since I was already done with UWorld, I tried USMLE RX. I understood that USMLE RX is a resource to hone mainly the information given in first aid. Since I had done BNB, Sketchy, Anki, and the associated questions, I didn't feel like USMLE RX was adding anything or was helping me close my knowledge gaps. So I did not continue it and focused more on mocks. Okay, this is an important slide. Right at the start, you can see that I began my self-assessments first with UWSA 1 and I scored a 230. I deep dived into my mistakes, made Anki cards, and also read some first aid to close gaps. In between each mock, I did my UWorld incorrects, did more Anki, and taught in fact a few students who were also studying for step 1 to help retain information. As I went along, my scores slowly started to improve. I should say that my question solving strategy greatly improved during this time. I realized that in the USMLE exam, the questions do not intend to trick you. You can use all the information in the question and assume that information is true. For example, if a farmer has a fever but no rash and has cows in his farm, the options may include many bugs and diseases, but the answer can only be Q fever from Coxiella burnetii, even if there are other suitable answers, because the vignette is classic. Do not second guess yourself thinking you'd be wrong, because the questions do not want you to second guess. The first answer you get in your mind is usually the first answer, the correct answer. In case you want to make sure this is true, you can do two different blocks and employ a strategy where you only go with your first answer in the first block, and then you go with your second guess answer in the second block, compare the percentages, and follow whichever strategy gave you the best percentage. As I started trusting the stems more for what they are, my ability to reach an answer and rule out incorrect options improved significantly. Finally, I should say that Free 120 was very similar to the real exam, at least for step 1. So I urge you to do it without fail close to your exam. It's an important mock, so don't waste it. I would like to say that if you're not doing well on the mocks, or if you're close to failing, postponing the exam is not a bad idea. Take a step back, evaluate where you are going wrong, take more time, maybe explore other resources that may help to cover your weaker areas, get a tutor, and then come back. Unless you have good scores in your self-assessments, taking the exam is not a great idea. Finally, it was a relief to see that I passed, and I'm sure all of you will pass too. If you have specific questions or would like for me to make a video on another topic, please comment. If you like this video and if you feel like you gained something from it, please like and subscribe. There are more videos to come that might be useful for you as well. Thank you.